Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing this 1989 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. Alright guys, so this 1989 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet is basically just the regular Carrera. It's not the Carrera Turbo or the Speedster, but it is still extremely cool car, and it is pretty quick even for today's standards. And again, Porsche, it's basically just a factory track car. Porsche has a long history of racing heritage and producing fantastic production cars that really capture that heritage and make it available to their buyers on, everyday streets. So like I did just say, this is the Carrera Cabriolet, and I say that because this is a soft top, so it is a convertible, and I believe cabriolet is basically just a word that they use for convertibles. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, definitely let me know down in the comments below. Another pretty cool thing about this car is that its engine is a rear engine with rear wheel drive, and it actually has an air-cooled engine. Now, I'm going to be talking about the engine a little bit more in depth in a minute, but I did just want to mention that it is an air-cooled engine. Now, pretty much all Porsche 911s had air-cooled engines from 1963 when they first started production on these models, all the way up to 1998, and the current 911s are water-cooled like most modern-day engines. But again, I did just kind of briefly want to mention that an air-cooled engine you often see them a lot in these old-school Porsches, VWs, other German, cars. But again, I did just want to mention it because it is something that is pretty cool to this specific car. So now I'm going to go over some factory body measurements for this 1989 Porsche 911. So this specific Porsche 911 came with a length of 168.94 inches, a width of 64.96 inches, a height of 51.97 inches, and a ground clearance of only 4.72 inches. So you definitely have to be careful while driving this thing. I am going to drive it in a bit. I'll definitely keep that in the back of my mind, because you can definitely bottom out and scrape easily with this car. Now, that being said, it does have a shorter wheelbase at 89.45 inches, and its curb weight is just over 2,800 pounds. Sorry. It's right at 2,866 pounds. So now, unlike this specific trim, the Carrera S and the Speedster of this generation were much wider than this trim, and their designs, along with other cars, have really inspired the modern wide body trends that we're currently seeing in the aftermarket community. Because again, they're so kind of girthy, very wide, and you could just fit like a lot of rubber underneath the fenders, which again helps out with performance. Plus, it looks really, really cool. So now, speaking of tires, I am going to just transition into the wheel and tire setup that is currently on this car. Now, the wheels and tires that are on this car are pretty much just what it came with in 1989. I don't know exactly. I'm going to have to ask the owner, but I'm pretty sure they could be completely original. Obviously not the tires, but I'm pretty sure the wheels are completely original, which is pretty cool. But this car from factory came with 19-inch alloy wheels, just like the ones that are on this specific Porsche. And the tires on this specific Porsche are actually Goodyear Eagle F1s. In the front, they are 205 by 55 by 16s. And in the rear, you have 225 by 50s by 16s. So underneath these wheels, you have disc brakes all the way around with fixed 2-piston calipers in the front as well as the rear with vented brake rotors. Now the rotor specs are 11.12 inches by 0.94 inches in the front and 11.42 inches by 0.94 inches in the rear, which I find kind of interesting because typically you do see larger brakes in the front of the vehicle, but again, the brakes are pretty much exactly the same all the way around, except you have slightly larger rotors in the rear, which again, I find a little bit odd. I don't know why that might be. If you know, definitely let me know down in the comments below, because again, that kind of doesn't really make sense to me. I'm sure there's reasoning behind it, but again, I just find that a little bit odd. Now the suspension in this car is a completely independent suspension. It just has the McPherson style struts all the way around. Now the suspension honestly wasn't incredibly revolutionary for its time, but the overall weight distribution of this rear engine, rear wheel drive sports car really made it, capable from going right from the dealership lot, like right to the track. It really handles fantastic. I can't wait to drive this one today. But the actual suspension itself wasn't like super revolutionary for its time. All right, guys, so before I get into the engine and the drivetrain of this car, I did just kind of want to show you guys how I have it set up right now, because basically it looks like there's two kind of like, I guess, struts or whatever that should hold it, but they kind of, I guess, ran out over time. So it doesn't really hold, and I can't really find like a stick or wherever to like kind of prop it up. So yeah, for the time being, I'm kind of just gonna have it like this while I kind of just, talk about the engine. All right, so now like I did mention before, this car its drivetrain is a rear engine and it is rear wheel drive. Now it is not mid-engine. Sometimes people mistake rear engine and mid-engine, because in mid-engine, the engine's in the back of the car, but in reality, a rear engine car literally has the engine behind the rearmost axle, whereas a mid-engine car has the engine actually mounted in between the two axles. So I did just want to clarify that for anyone that doesn't know the difference between the two. But anyway, moving on to this specific engine. Now again, like I said before, this is the regular 911 Carrera. It is not the turbo. So underneath the back hood, whatever you want to call this thing, you have the 3.2 liter naturally aspirated air-cooled single overhead cam port injected flat 6-cylinder engine. Now honestly, I think that this is a little bit better than the turbo engine. Yes, the turbo engine does make more power, but these old Porsche engines with turbos on it were absolutely infamous for the turbo lag. A lot of times you hear people where they're in, I guess, the higher trim 911s, like a Carrera Turbo or Carrera S, whatever, and they would, take corners, and then right through the apex, the turbo just kicks in, and you get all the boost, and next thing you know, like, you're fishtailing. So honestly, I do really appreciate this naturally aspirated engine. Now, what this engine is putting out right now, or what it did put out off the assembly line in 1989, is 217 brake horsepower at 5,900 RPMs and 195 foot-pounds of torque at 4,800 RPMs. Now again, those numbers really might not be too impressive, especially when considering today's standards, but you do have to keep in mind the right around 2,800 pound curb weight. So this thing could definitely get up and jump. Now, right now, this specific Porsche it's having a problem with like the idle. It's not tuned correctly. The owner doesn't really know what's going on. Basically, it's just not running 100%. That being said, I am going to take it out on a short drive today, but I do just want to, let you guys know that it's not like to its fullest potential currently. But I'm sure, when this thing is fully tuned, fully like worked out, it is definitely pretty impressive again, even by today's standards. Now, the 1989 911 Carrera Cabriolet only came with the 5-speed manual transmission, and the previous owner actually did race this thing. I don't know if he really has any engine mods. I can't see anything off the bat underneath the engine bay. If you are like a Porsche guy, or you are seeing something that I'm missing, definitely just let me know down in the comments below. I did, however, see a front strut bar like across the front, like the front trunk. So that is something that definitely does make this car a lot more stabler, I guess is the right word for it, than a Carrera right out of the factory. Now, that being said, when this engine is combined with the 5-speed manual transmission, basically the miles per gallon numbers are, you get like right around 16 miles per gallon during city driving, 22 miles per gallon during highway driving, for a combined average of 19 miles per gallon. Now, the fuel tank is actually surprisingly, really, I found this out when searching it up, it is a 22.5 US gallon fuel tank, and it basically requires like 91 and above octane fuel, which is self-explanatory. But yeah, that definitely did surprise me. I didn't realize that the fuel tank was so big in this car. But yeah, that being said, now I'm just going to move right along into the interior. Alright guys, so now I'm actually sitting in the driver's seat of this 911 Carrera, and I have to say right off the bat, this is definitely a proper sports car. It's not super comfortable. It does have really, really cool red leather, like all the way around, but I am sitting in this like bucket seat, and it definitely holds you in. It honestly feels almost like an aftermarket seat. It definitely holds you in. I'm sure it really like cups you around the corner as well. Now, the only things that are not original on this car is this steering wheel. You guys could probably tell it does fit the car. I'm not saying it's out of place or anything, but it does seem a little bit newer than the rest of the interior, as well as the stereo, my bad. So yeah, the steering wheel and the stereo are replaced, which honestly a lot of people replace out stereos for older cars. But honestly, I really like this steering wheel. Now, honestly, maybe it could flow a little bit better in the interior because, again, it doesn't really match some of, like, I guess, the era. But honestly, it's really not that far off. You can't really tell that much. And it does feel really good. It's basically all leather. It has, like kind of like grips around it. So yeah, I mean, without further ado, I'm basically just going to take this thing for a spin. Now, again, like I said, this isn't tuned 100%. So the driving part of this video isn't going to be very long, but yeah. All right, guys. So now I'm in this Porsche 911 Carrera, and it's not running. This specific Porsche is not running 100% right now, like I'm saying. So yeah, I'm just kind of going to go around the block a couple of times. It kind of has like a battery issue or something. Right now, it seems to be doing not that bad. But I really have to be careful about like slowing down, because it might stall on me. Now, that being said, as I drive it more and more, it is actually kind of like, I guess, warming up. And it definitely, I just did like a little second gear pull. Again, I'm not doing anything crazy. I was probably around like half throttle. And again, this car isn't at 100%, and it still kind of brings you back in the seat a little bit. Now, that being said, even though the engine, oh wow, it definitely pulls really good. Now, mind you, that kind of like that, it wasn't full throttle, but I am going down a hill. I did give it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the steering, the handling is fantastic in this car. I really, really like the steering wheel. It does like fit the interior really well. But again, the engine's it's unhealthy right now. Now, again, the owner just thinks it has to be tuned. I think it just has to be tuned too, because honestly, in these cars, like in these Porsches, a lot of times all it is just a tune, and it's like a completely different car. Now that being said, guys, I know this was a very short driving, I guess, segment or whatever compared to my other ones. Again, this car isn't at 100%, so I don't want to really test it out that much. But if you stuck to the end of this video, definitely be sure to you know, leave a like on the video. It helps out a lot. But until the next one, see you guys.